Is it possible that recorded hypnotherapy sessions or hypnosis sessions can be not only just as powerful as a live one-to-one session with a client, but more powerful and more effective? And is it possible that we can make dramatic change in our youthful minds' clients through the use, of just simple storytelling and metaphor, and again, via recorded session? I want you to listen to today's episode because it's going to be a conversation with a very interesting hypnotherapist from the United Kingdom who is doing just those things. She's defying what a lot of hypnotists and hypnotherapists and NLP practitioners believe to be possible in what she's doing in her practice. Really interesting episode. Hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the latest episode of the Hypnotic Game Changers podcast. This is the industry podcast for hypnotherapists, NLP practitioners, and coaches, a by us, for us style of podcast where every week I speak to a different expert, authority, or highly interesting person and ask them to share one thing that has been a massive game changer for them in their business, in their life, and probably a little bit in both. I'm your host, Ryan Montis. I'm a business coach. I'm an NLP trainer. I'm a hypnotherapy trainer. I used to be a soldier. Before that, I was a private detective. I've done a lot of cool stuff over the years, and I hope you'll pay attention to this episode and learn something that is very valuable and empowering for you. Our guest today is the wonderful Angela Cain, all the way from the United Kingdom. Very excited to speak with her. She's a hypnotherapist. She's a very busy woman. She brings a lot to the table, and she does some things that most hypnotherapists, I would say avoid, but let's just say she does some things that most hypnotherapists don't take on. And we'll get into a little bit more detail on that in a minute. Just before we talk to Angela, this episode is sponsored by the Mission and Movement Training Mastermind, my newest mastermind, where we look after mindset, skill set, and sales systems for people in our industry. We handle it all in one place, so you don't need to run around to a whole bunch of different sources trying to put together all the pieces of the puzzle. Okay, Angela, welcome
Hello.
to the podcast.
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay,
Fine.
great. So glad to have you with us. How'd you like your little introduction there?
I loved it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. I gave you a little bit of an introduction, and you and I haven't known each other that long, just a couple of weeks at this point.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was impressed with the first conversation that we had offline, so I invited you to be on the podcast. But please feel free to go ahead and maybe introduce yourself and elaborate a little bit on what I shared there.
Certainly. So you're right. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist based in the UK. I do help children and adults, but I do specialize with children. I have a private practice in the middle of the UK, in the Midlands. I'm also an associate down in London for a Harley Street practice down there. Down there, I'm their child therapist. So I only deal with children down in London. But I have to say, I have the best job in the world. I love it. So it doesn't actually feel like working.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to get into all of that. I think, we've let the cat out of the bag a little bit. And that's one of those things is you routinely work with children. You're in your circles, you're known for working with children.
Yes.
And I don't want to give people the wrong perception. It's not like hypnotherapists in general, I think, are scared to work with children or feel that they're not able. I think most people probably imagine that they're able. It's just that for one reason or another, most people don't. And I know when I was doing all of my certifications, with the American boards of hypnotherapy and NLP, the general rule of thumb was if somebody's under 18, unless you have specific training, this is what I'm paraphrasing what was told to me when I was going through my training. Unless you have specific training to work with people under 18, it's not worth the additional hassle and liability to do so, right? And that was kind of the perception that was given to me and the people around me when we were going through and getting trained. And, I'm not going to speak to whether that's 100%, the case for everybody or not, but that was kind of like, okay. And then it was just kind of like the default thereafter was, well, most people don't work with kids. And if you do, you're special, right? So what was it that, for you that got you into, opened your mind and opened your willingness to enter that arena?
My background has always been working with children. So I did used to teach in an infant school and then trained as a hypnotherapist. And actually, love working with children anyway. Their imaginations are amazing. So this hypnotherapy is amazing with children. So yeah, it was just a natural transition. But I do work with adults as well, but I specialize, like you say, not many people, and it's interesting you say about the qualifications. I get the impression that a lot of people, a bit like when you're asked to work with animals or children and people say, no, I don't know, thank you. But that's not the impression I have with children. And that's certainly not the experience that I've had. I love working with them. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it is quite unique.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, what has been the biggest game changer for you in your career in client service. Was it the decision to just be open to working with children and youth and could be a little bit outside of the norm, or was there something else that comes to mind as being like the big game changer for you?
Yeah, well, I've actually got a couple of game changers. The first one was when I first started out, I really looked after adults to do hypnotherapy. And then obviously I realized that children actually work amazingly with hypnotherapy. And because of my background with children, that was my game changer. And then hence I'm the child therapist down in London. But the other game changer was the fact that I have down in London, I have children all over the world. And obviously, it's impossible to see them face to face. And sometimes because I work as young as 6-year-olds, and to get them to sit still, to have a sort of a Zoom session is near enough impossible. So my game changer has been to create personalized recordings. So the children, I get the parents to fill out quite a detailed questionnaire with who their superheroes are, what their favorite television programs are, all those sort of lovely things, best friends. And then I create if you like, for the child, a story for them. But those stories are hypnotherapy and they do reframe and retrain phobias or anxiety or whatever. So that's really been my game changer.
I think that's I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that is really fascinating for a couple of reasons. The first is it's tremendous that you're able to make this impact on children all over the world, especially if they're not physically able to attend one of your offices or the one in London, right? But also, I think a lot of hypnotherapists have the perception that a recorded session won't be as impactful as a live one-to-one session, whether it's, remotely or in person. And I don't even think it's just hypnotherapists that have that impression. I think it's a lot of clients or potential clients have that impression. It's almost like it's a different tier to have like a recorded experience and then, a one-to-one hypnotherapy session. But it sounds like in your experience, these recorded sessions are as powerful and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe in some
Yeah.
cases for various reasons, more powerful than
Oh,
relying on a live
yeah.
session. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I was actually going to say that. So when I write the session, it's exactly what I would do as a face-to-face session. But the benefits of somebody having a personalized recording is they get to listen to it over and over again. When I see clients face to face, they get recordings, but they don't get the session recordings. I just give them little snippets of what part of the session that I want them to work on. So actually, there are pros and cons for both, but the fact you're embedding, and a lot of children that I've seen, they still are in touch with me, even though they're all fine and their phobia's gone or whatever it might be. They still go to bed with me each night. So it's very sweet that they still like listening to the stories.
Yeah. I mean, when you do a recording like that, that's story based, and obviously you're utilizing metaphor and hypnotic language. I mean, I like that benefit that even if it, for lack of a better term, because their problem is resolved or their challenge was resolved, the recording loses perhaps a little bit of relevance, but it doesn't lose the joy of listening to it. It doesn't lose the comfort of listening to it. It doesn't lose the reinforcement of, other maybe indirect positive suggestions that are in there. So it is this like resource that they have, to continue to use long after they've resolved whatever the initial challenge was that they came to you for. I think that's really, really cool. What a fun bonus, benefit of having your service structured that way.
What I should say as well is, because obviously what's important is having that client contact. So although I do a personalized recording, I do arrange for a Zoom call where the child then sees me and it's like, oh, that's the face to the voice. And they're always a bit like, what? And then they can tell me what they want in their next recording. So if they wanted another friend added, or if they wanted another topic that they really like. Some of them are quite challenging, so that I have to learn my dinosaurs or whatever it might be. But yeah, it's really, I still get that client contact and I still feel like I have a great relationship with my clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So to kind of rewind a little bit, the big game changers, and you said there was a couple, I want to make sure we don't miss anything, were, the openness to work with younger clientele
Yeah.
in general, being able to utilize this style of recorded
Yeah.
session so that you can have impact on these children or clients. Obviously you work with adults as well anywhere in the world. Was there something else that we were going to come back to?
Sorry, I actually meant working with children, because there's actually a network of hypnotherapists that the school that trained me, they sort of every quarter, I think it is, all the hypnotherapists get together. And I would say there's probably out of, I don't know, each meeting, maybe there's like 50 or 60 people, maybe 2 people, if that, or I'm the only one that will work with children. So that really was a game changer, and it wasn't on purpose, because I love working with children.
Yeah. I think I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. So I think that's one of the benefits of, there's this constant debate with hypnotherapists, not debate, but conversation of like the importance of niching down. And, one of the takes that I have about niching is like, it's great to niche if there's a specific angle that is highly attractive to you. Like for you, it's obviously working with kids has been a big joy and a big win for you. But I think sometimes people feel the pressure to niche down and get specific, even if that's not
Yeah.
truly what they want to do. And I'm constantly telling people, you can both have a specialty, and specialize in one area and still remain open to general clientele. And I suspect probably, you are doing that, right? Like,
That's exactly what I do.
yeah, you're known amongst your peers as like the person to send the kids to. But you
Yeah.
said it yourself, also you have regular, general practice
Yeah.
hypnotherapy clients too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would
I think
imagine that,
it's interesting as well. I think it makes it varied, but you still have a niche.
yeah, I would agree. Yeah. And I would imagine that being recognized as a specialist with youth not only gets you more youth clients, but probably because your name is just out there more because of that, gets you more adult clients as well, right? Is that the
Yeah.
case?
Yeah, and however, when I do my social media, I will focus on things that are relevant in the month. So if it's Stress Awareness Month, or if it's Men's Mental Health. Interestingly, my clients for men and men's mental health I would say I see more than 50-50 of men as opposed to women, which has changed from quite a few years ago. So I think men are aware of their mental health now. And I think hypnotherapy is great for them, because often they don't really want to talk. So it's not a talking therapy. So they fill out the questionnaire and then they just lie back, and then we just do the reframing.
Beautiful. Yeah. What do you think is the reason for, that shift in the demographics that are coming to visit you? There being more men now than there were a few years ago. Do you think it's just the awareness of men and in men's mental health and more willingness to address it?
Yeah, I actually do think so. And I think often the men will contact me themselves, or their wives have asked them to come and see me. So I do think it is out there that men's mental health needs to be addressed a lot more than it has been. There's probably still a lot more work to be done, but I've certainly noticed the increase of men coming to see me.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, that's good to hear that there's that
Yeah.
that shift. I've been seeing that shift as well. Like even,
Yeah.
like I've been doing this work since 2019. And and yes, like steadily over these last 5 years, we've seen that
Yeah.
change, both in the client side and in people coming in, for practitioner training as well. So we're almost out of time. I do want to ask you,
Mhm.
because most of the listeners of this podcast, of course, are trained hypnotherapists.
Yes.
For those that were of that mindset that a recorded session is not as powerful as a one-to-one, live session, what tips can you give them, or what insights might you be able to share with them to help them strengthen their recorded sessions if they so choose to lean into those a little bit more?
Personally, well, when you think back to what I've initially said, whatever the recorded session, it's actually what I would have done in a face-to-face session. So there's really, and it works amazingly with children because for them it's like stories, but there are reasons behind it, and there will be tools and techniques that they're taught, but in a story format. I suppose for some people that might be anti or not quite on board with personal recordings, it would be the ones that obviously when you do parts therapy, for argument's sake, and you need answers back, then it's a bit difficult to do recorded sessions. But for children, I've and actually I've mentioned parts therapy, that I've got a nice little analogy that I use, that they don't have to answer, they're just talking in their own mind. So I liken the mind to a beehive. So the little bees do the jobs for them. So, and they love that. Unless they've got a phobia against bees, and then it doesn't work.
Of course, yeah, 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 got
So
it.
does that answer? I just think it's just what I would do in a actual face-to-face session.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. It's just, and because I've done a lot of recorded sessions as well, and I sometimes have been delighted, surprised and delighted how effective they have been for the people
Yeah.
that listen to them. And yeah, it's true what you say. For every pattern or every technique, from NLP or from traditional hypnotherapy or the like, that can be done through an conversational exchange with a client, probably there's a way to put it in a recorded format. And I've been in that position before where I've had to, put my thinking cap on for a second and think, okay, how can I put this
Yeah.
into a metaphor, put this into, something that can just be listened to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, I
Okay.
still give them time to so even in the session, it's sort of speak to that part that you need to speak to. So it would be quiet, and then they can then have that chance to speak to that part.
Yeah,
If that
totally,
makes sense.
totally. Yeah. Last question for you. For the hypnotherapists or practitioners in the audience that have been in that pattern of, like, soon as it's like a kid or a youth or they're underage, they're just in the habit of, oh, no, you got to go talk to so and so or so and so. And if you're listening to this and you want to keep doing that, well, now you have a great resource to send
I
people
would
to. And
definitely send them
Angela
to me.
Cain, right? I mean, she's taking clients from all over the world. But for those that have done it in the past just because they thought that was what most hypnotherapists do, but they think, well, they've been thinking, maybe I can help some kids, or maybe I can,
Yeah.
work with my own, the children that exist in my space already. What tips would you have for them?
I suppose, though, you've got to be able to engage with them. So if you don't engage with them, you're never going to get them on board. So it's getting down to their language and their interests. And yeah, when they come to see me, if they come and see me in my office, they have a little eye mask and they relax back. And it's almost like they're in a spa environment, and they're all very, oh, I don't want to get better because I like coming here. So I just think For some people, maybe I know somebody that's one of my peers. She just never works with children because she just doesn't understand them, doesn't want to understand them. So if people have got an interest and they really do want to work with children, then they will find a way. But you do have to get engaged with them and get down to their level.
Yeah.
I hope
And
that helps.
I think that helps. And I think also just not being afraid of
Yeah.
doing it, right? Because
Yeah.
although I think, that hypnotherapists like yourself are more rare, the ones that help children. I have had conversations with several people who do, and none of them have ever reported, oh, it's really hard. Kids are hard to work with. It's always like, kids are great. They don't have the resistance that a lot of
Yeah.
adults have. They respond to fun metaphors really well. And so I think some people might,
Imagination. Yeah.
they have vivid imaginations. They're willing to suspend disbelief, all the things that kind of make an ideal
Yeah.
client, hypnotherapy client, right? So
Yeah.
maybe one of the tips is just, it's worth a try, right? It's worth a try.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Angela, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing all about what you do and the game changers in your practice and in your life. For those that do want to either consult with you about your services or potentially refer people to you, how can they contact you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
If they contact me through my website, which is Angela Cain, hypnotherapy.com.
Okay. Beautiful.
So
And
KCA.
okay. And that'll be linked in the show notes, everybody, and anywhere where this episode is posted, look around it, and there will be a link to Angela's website, so you don't have to worry about the spelling or anything. And I say this always with any of my guests on the podcast. If you have any difficulty contacting them, feel free to contact me, and I can get you in touch with them. I stay in touch with all of my guests, so I always know how to send people their way. Angela, anything else to add before we wrap up?
No, it's just been really lovely. Thank you so much for inviting me. Really, really lovely.
You're most welcome. Yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. So that's going to be it for today, everybody. For more info on me or any of my stuff, it's ryanmontis.com, at ryanmontisnlp on Instagram. Lots of good stuff there. And that's it for now. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.